Following the disappointment that was A New Beginning, Friday the 13th producer Frank Mancuso Jr. got one directive from the brass at Paramount: get the series back on track. For the next installment, Mancuso hired director Tom McLaughlin, who was a fan of the classic Universal monster movies and who wanted to inject a bit of gothic horror into the formula. At this point, everyone knew what to expect. No one could deny that they were making the same movie over and over again, and it seemed like the series was seeing diminishing returns, even though Paramount was still seeing a profit. Thankfully, McLaughlin added another much-needed element that would hopefully give the series a shot in the arm: humor. I think this movie is typically regarded well among fans, myself included, but there are also people who criticize that aspect of it. Screenwriter Kevin Williamson quoted Jason Lives as being a direct inspiration for him when he wrote the iconic thriller in the 90s. Don't get the wrong idea. At its core, Jason Lives is a horror movie, through and through. But you'll have fun watching it nonetheless. It makes a lot of self-referential jokes, sometimes even breaking the fourth wall, to have fun with its audience.
Does he think I'm a farthead?
It knows exactly what kind of film it is, and it's for that reason that it's my personal favorite in the series. It's maybe the only film in the series that gives its main character any agency. Tommy Jarvis is back, this time played by Tom Matthews, and right from the first scene, he's looking to put Jason to rest. In all the other films, Jason is pretty much this legend that everyone knows about, but no one realizes there's a threat until they're killed off. I've said it before, but these movies mainly consist of characters running in and out of cabins, calling other characters names until Jason finds them. But all throughout this movie, Tommy's got a motivation: to stop Jason by returning him back to his resting place beneath Crystal Lake. It gives the film a sense of urgency that gives it the illusion that it's a real movie, and not just a cheap bit of exploitation. After all, this is the only film in the series not to feature any nudity. While I love to give this movie credit, it's more entertaining than it has any right to be, it is still a Friday the 13th film at heart. The characters are likable, but Tommy's the only one with any sense of purpose. Everyone else is a body count, which is what stops this from being anything other than a top-notch slasher flick. It's clever, but it also suffers from a ton of cuts courtesy of the MPAA. It was typical back then to play a sort of tug-of-war with the ratings board, excising some of the gore in place of more nudity. But given how this movie has none of that, you'd think they would have gotten away with some more gruesome kills. Maybe because this is also the only Friday to have actual kids at the camp, they decided to shy away from the gore a bit. But I know for a fact that there's one scene in particular where they were forced to cut away abruptly, and that's the triple decapitation scene. When I first saw the film, I didn't even realize what happened, and neither did the effects department because they didn't know the scene had been cut until the screening. Aside from the humor, it also has some nice stunts that just weren't characteristic of a Friday film. You've got a car chase, an RV gets thrown on its side, and there's a pretty nice climax where Tommy sets the lake on fire. Even Harry Manfredini's score sounds different, more atmospheric. It's not just the usual ripoff of the Psycho score we're so used to. If I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Tom Matthews as Tommy. He's fine, he brings more to the role than John Shepherd before him, but I'm still not seeing the correlation between Tommy as a kid and the Tommy we're seeing now. There's a disconnect between the three actors, and because there's such a big time jump in between movies, he's always written completely different. Seriously, you could have just created a new character and established that he had a history with Jason that we didn't get to see. What's funny is, despite Corey Feldman being interested in reprising the character all these years later, Tom Matthews has become the embodiment of the character, playing him in not only the video game, but in a series of fan films. I just have to accept it. As far as the man behind the mask, C.J. Graham is my favorite portrayal of the character. He's menacing while not taking himself too seriously. Every actor that donned the role seemed to add something to the character, making him more menacing as the series evolved. This is the first one where Jason is basically undead, but he still has a pretty sinister presence. He doesn't run like the other actors did, but he does move with a sense of purpose. Whenever they show him marching through the woods, you get the sense that he's trying to get somewhere. This is not a guy you want to cross paths with in the woods. However, from this point forward, there's a certain creep factor the earlier Jasons had that is somehow missing with undead Jason. From this point forward, Jason is very similar to the Terminator in that nothing can stop him. In the past films, you got the sense that he was just a hard guy to kill, but he could be injured if you got lucky. Jason gets messed up pretty badly in each of those movies, but here he survives an RV getting flipped over, gets set on fire, and gets shot like a gazillion times. He's unstoppable, and it gives the movie a more action movie feel. Jason is an action star at this point. He's the Terminator, he's the Predator, and these movies started out creepier than that. Thinking about zombie Jason, as I guess he's called by this point, the idea of a mummified Jason isn't nearly as scary in real life terms as a weird, deformed man in a hockey mask lurking behind the trees, just waiting for the right moment to strike. We don't get that here. Jason is Rambo, and he has no qualms about killing anyone because he really can't be stopped by any of the usual means. All that to say, I really like Jason Lives, if for nothing else than just how fun it all is. This is an easy recommendation, especially for people who've never really seen a slasher movie and want to ease their way in with a softer but still enjoyable film. I get the feeling that the fans who really love the Tom Savini stuff from parts 1 and 4 might not enjoy this as much, but it seems to be looked at favorably most of the time.